Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
You are sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Sitting Ringside. My name is David Penzer, and I am so happy that you are here once again to listen to this thing we call a podcast. I want to give a quick shout out to the Neidhart family, Natty and TJ Wilson, and the mom and the sister. Want to pay tribute to Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who passed away last week, and at a young age. What a fun guy to be around. You know, I'm sure by this time you've, if you follow wrestling on the internet or on social media, you've heard plenty of Jim Neidhart stories, but tough as nails, but a fun guy, and never had any bad interaction with him. And I can't say that about a lot of guys, even guys that I was friends with. You know, we'd get in arguments and have our differences, seeing the same people, night after night, week after week, you could get on people's nerves, but Jim was one of a kind. And I've met and gotten to talk to Natty a little bit. I actually used to book her and TJ, 2003. I used to book them when I had in-your-face bookings after the XWF. So, but I've gotten to talk to her after a couple of WrestleManias, and TJ is great guy. And, so I just want to send that family condolences, and just have you guys in my thoughts. And rest in peace, Jim Neidhart. What a great guy, and he will be missed. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we're going to bring him on here pretty quick because we got a lot of questions to ask. This was one of the hardest. I get a bunch of topics, and I try to narrow them down. I try not to ask questions that have been answered a million times on a million other different platforms. And this was the hardest one to nail down because really this person's done a lot of things, a lot of things that he's created, a lot of situations that have controversy attached to them in one way or another. So want to bring him right on and not waste any time. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest this week. He is a WWE Hall of Famer and the owner of Global Force Wrestling, the founder of TNA, and he is my friend. Please welcome Jeff Jarrett. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been promising, we are honored this week to have on Sitting Ringside. He's been here before in short spurts just to tell a story or two, but he's going to give us the full Monty to talk about his career today. And I got to say that what a career it was. This is now the 58th episode of Sitting Ringside, and I've never found it so hard to take a career and limit it to like 20 or 25 questions before. He is the founder of TNA. He is the owner of Global Force Wrestling and a WWE Hall of Famer, ladies and gentlemen, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Welcome to Sitting Ringside.
Buddy, Hello, Dave, and you are so true to form, and you realized. I've realized that leopard doesn't change his spots. You cannot help yourself, and I know your producer will back me up. You literally just said what a career it was, as in past tense, as in it's over. Penzer, some things never change, and you certainly won't. So welcome to Sitting Ringside with Dave Penzer and Double J. Oh, man, good to hear your voice, Dave.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. So I start out, every time I interview a second generation or third generation wrestler, I start out with the same two questions. So that was the easy part. The rest was putting all the rest of your hijinks in on one page of questions. Curious what age that you realized what your dad and I guess what your family did.
Gosh, what age?
Yeah, how old were you?
Oh, man. I guess everything is relative, and it depends on how deep you want to go. But I can remember living with my mom as a young boy, sitting the way our house was. As you open the door, there was a very small sitting area, and then like a landing for stairs that went upstairs, and the kitchen was right off to the left. But I can remember sitting on that landing, staring out the front door, waiting either for my dad, but most of the time it would be somebody that would run by the house and pick me up to go down to the matches in Nashville. And I lived about, 10 minutes from the Nashville Fairgrounds is where I grew up, south side of Nashville. And so that had to have been, 10, 11, 12 years old, around that age, maybe younger than that. One time I went to a TV taping with Nick Goulas. So that had to have been, I was under 10 because my father and Nick split in 76, 77. So they used to do TV tapings, and Phil Hickerson, I remember it vividly. Phil Hickerson was at the TV tapings. Dennis Condrey, trying to think who else. Tojo was there. But that goes, and me and my older brother sat in the wrestling audience. So, gosh, it was under the age of 10, or some of my earliest memories, I guess you could say. I remember sitting on my couch watching the David Letterman scenario go down with Jerry Lawler, and very fascinated by that. So those are some of my earliest memories.
It's funny you mentioned Nick Goulas. I don't know. I know you're on Twitter, but I don't know if you saw it. There's actually a picture that was taken this weekend at a reunion of George Goulas and Bobby Eaton, the old Jet Set, reunited. I don't know if you saw that picture, but
I saw a recent picture Friday of George, and he shaved his head.
yeah, no, but you got to look at the Jet Set picture because they have an old one of those two, and then they have the recent one, and it's something. Hey, the other question I always ask second generation wrestler, I even think this is more interesting than what age you realize is, what age were you smartened up, and by who?
Oh, gosh. That was sort of a general set of circumstances. I could remember, I was probably 13, 14 years old, sniffing around in my dad's office before I moved in with him when I still lived with my mom. He had some notes on the matches and the matches that were taking place like two weeks in advance or 3 weeks in advance. And there was a heel turn or a babyface turn, and you sort of said, okay, he's already got this plan. So that might have been some of my research that I did on my own, that I started putting two and two together. But being around the house and the talent would come and do their promos, and I wasn't allowed in there. But there's the heels and the baby faces, the good guys and the bad guys there at the same time, and
Sure.
They're doing promos, and you just sort of start putting things together and that kind of deal. But man, what a completely different lifetime, a completely different generation. Just how the business was, operated on a day-to-day basis. That is very, very close knit community, and a lot of secrets within it.
Man, there's a book just talking about that kind of stuff. There's a whole book there just talking about that kind of stuff with, the heels and the baby faces coming over to your house, cutting promos behind the locked door. And that's tremendous. As a wrestling fan, that's like every wrestling fan's dream is to live in that house. Did you realize I know you had mentioned recently that out of 5 siblings, you were the only one who got the bug. Did you realize how lucky you were that your dad ran the place?
You know, and Cornette has always said it best. It's either the greatest thing that ever happened to me or the worst thing that ever happened to me getting into business. I kind of think, you know, obviously I've been blessed. Like you call it luck, I call it blessed. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But you know, at an early age, I can remember, watching the Hulk Hogan intro piece video on old 3/4 inch tapes. You know, I don't even know if you know what a 3/4 inch is,
I do.
but it's a big block tape. It's much bigger than a VHS tape. And half your audience doesn't even know what a VHS is. Good God, I'm going through generations about generations. But no, the big machines and watching intro tapes and just I love that the original Moondog video. If people want to Google that or YouTube that, it was a swamp, and that swamp was literally about 100 yards from our back door, and it was as a drain pond. But in the summers it would dry up. But as that would dry up, a ton of algae on it. So those guys got it out in there, and that's where the Moondogs were created. Kamala was created on another part of the back farm. A guy named Tapu was in front of a big fiery deal, and that was off of just all kind of vignettes that were produced around and the Fabs and gosh, the Bill Dundee, just all kind of music videos done back in the day. So it was really cool. I was always really, really mesmerized by that side of it. But like going from town to town, and I agree, Dave, what you say. I don't know if it's a book, but man, the stories of kayfabe and Tojo, only grocery shopping late at night because he didn't want to be around fans, and he wanted to have his quiet time, and the heels and the baby faces riding in separate cars, and guys in the Bill Watts territory and other territories around getting fired for riding to work with the wrong group. Just all that kind of stuff and how the business operated was so, man, it's a different generation, a different era, but like a lot of other things. I mean, Bill Russell was a player coach for the Boston Celtics, many moons ago. So sure. Just we all have evolved and adapted and changed. But the wrestling business in the 60s, 70s, and 80s is drastically different than what it is now.
Absolutely. I'm still mesmerized by all these stories about all these promos that were cut on your property. That's super cool stuff. We had never talked about that, and we've talked about a lot of stuff. I want to talk to you.
And literally those kind of stories that when you again, I'll say I was lucky. When you sit on a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid or the younger that, and you sort of watch it from that perspective, but then you see it air on TV on
right.
Saturday morning, and then you go from that when you go to the Louisville, Kentucky on Tuesday, Evansville on Wednesday, Nashville on a Saturday, Mid-South Coliseum.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. Do you really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to SaveWithConrad.com.
Monday, in Memphis on Monday. When you see all that and you see, oh my gosh, you hear them talk, all right, the house, the gross dollar amount is up X amount of dollars. It's down. And you go, okay, you hear that conversation on why something's up, why it's down. It is an education that literally I don't think you could put a price on this day and age because, over the years it's gone from the houses up or down, and then you look at buy rates up or down and ratings up or down. And now you've got all the different metrics of social media data, ratings data, +3, +7. When you're watching the show, the ratings come in. You just, all the barometers and all the metrics that have been used over the years, and merch sales and who's selling what and what price point, just all the data. And I think that's a That's a big part of why my brain is a data junkie. I love to sort of get all that in. And now when you look at Ring of Honor and gosh, MLW and all the promotions in the UK and Australia, and then obviously WWE and Raw and SmackDown and NXT, you just look at all the massive amount of research and WWE's publicly traded company. It's really, really cool from I'll call it an old school wrestling fan, which I am, turned into a wrestler, turned into a promoter. It's really cool to see how things have evolved.
Not to mention, it must have been cool going to the arenas when you were a kid and hearing the fans going, "Oh, did you see that video from Africa?" And you're thinking, "Yeah, that's my backyard." But
That's true.
So, I want to jump to your first WWF run. Like I said, there's so much to talk about, and I know your time is limited. I'm going to shock you. I think I already told you this, but I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. But I know you recently did a spoken word tour of the UK, and it was broadcast on Fight TV. For this interview, I actually not only watched it, I bought it.
No way. I know that's a lie.
No, I did. I'll show. No, hey, if you could get Weber to give me a refund, hey, I'll.
Well, let's get it clear. You were probably in the room when it was purchased, but Dave, I got to tell you, man to man, that doesn't count as you buying it. Whose credit card did you use? That person actually bought it.
It went on my debit card. I'll forward you the record. But
there is no possible way that Dave Penzer I know spent $10. Now who in the room gave you $10 in cash? Because there's some loophole in this. I know the Dave Penzer I know did not actually take $10 out of wages that he's earned and bought that. There's no way. Oh. There's no way.
Well, hell just froze over, Jeff, because I swear to God, I'm my kid. I did.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Man. I know you are. So you mentioned on that tour, on the bit, what would you call that?
It's a spoken word tour, the Ain't He Great tour.
The Ain't He Great tour. You mentioned that you thought, and I agree with you actually in hindsight, that they rushed what you called the Milli Vanilli storyline, which for those who didn't watch the spoken word tour on Fight, and it's still on there. You could get it on demand because I watched it this weekend. Was the fact that you were that Brian James sang the song and you were lip syncing it, taking all the credit. And I agree with you that that they wanted to do it way too early, in my opinion. But what was the reason that you were given of why they wanted to pull the plug on that so early?
I was never given one. And, again, I'll respectfully say that they have the right and will always have the right. I've been in, both sets of shoes. That they didn't have to give me a reason, although I do believe that would have helped drastically. But I wasn't given a reason. I wasn't even given really a half of an explanation. It's we're doing it. If those who heard it, the explanation earlier, I don't want to be repetitive, but Dave, you've got a lot of people that listen to your podcast, I'm sure, that hadn't heard it. But no, that if you want to give a little background, I felt that the foundation of the Double J character was this guy who could have a decent ability in the ring. He could back up what he was saying. But the foundation of the Double J character is that I was a country music singer that was going to take over the WWF and rename it the Double JF. But the foundation of that character was a singer, and one song out of the box, and then sort of pull the rug out from under it. Lord knows Brian has been, it's still to this day, but God gave him a gift to sing. He didn't give that same, can I sing? Yes. Can I sing like Brian? Absolutely not. Not even close. And so, it wasn't the fact that I didn't like the storyline. I just felt it was rushed in a big way.
I agree with you, and interesting that you weren't given a reason. But at the end, you and Brian didn't do it. You were supposed to do the angle at the pay-per-view, and after the match was done, you guys just walked out. I think you walked to your car, went home. I'm wondering, I agree with you that let's say that everybody in the situation would agree that it was in hindsight, it was too early to do it. What was your thought process by just walking out? Do you think you could go somewhere else and do it and keep it going for another year or two? Or was it just, at that point it was you're going to put your foot down?
Hindsight's 20/20. So do I have this magical ball? But at the time, if I recall, I wanted to just completely, maybe not pump the brakes, because I think I've said that in past interviews, but I wanted to slam on the brakes and maybe not change roads, maybe not even change lanes, just slow the complete process down, and hopefully cooler heads prevail, or things could maybe get back on track. I knew once we pulled the trigger that night that there was sort of the point of no return. And, I didn't want to go there. So I went home, and Brian said, "I'm with you. I'll do whatever you want." I said, "Brian, you got to make your own decision." And he said, "I am." And there was other stuff going on behind the scenes as it relates to Brian and his relationship and his contractual situation and everything that went with it. That he had to make his own decision, but he did, and we left together. And it's obviously been very, very well documented, but it's not like I wanted to rewrite or completely change the storyline. I just wanted to slam the brakes on it and pump them for a minute and see what might transpire out of it.
Do you think in the back of your mind, knowing your dad owned a wrestling territory, that you could go back and work might have, given you the comfort to do that? Or do you think you would have done it even if you had nothing to fall back on?
Oh, well, you have to take into account all of that. That goes without saying that, this is 95. The territory was still going. It was 95. The territory was still going. Japan was an option. Puerto Rico was still running. There was wrestling outside of, beside WCW. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. There was multiple options, and that's just in the wrestling business. On the family business side of things, my dad had looked at different things, and he had started developing road, water, and sewer, basically, doing different things. And I knew, okay, I never finished college, and I knew that was semi in the back of my head, but probably first and foremost. And I did do this. I used that time because I knew I was in a contract freeze. I went and got my contractor's license. I became a contractor during that time because I knew I had time that I wasn't doing anything, during the days for the foreseeable future. And I studied up and went out and got my contractor's license during that time.
Wow, I didn't know that. So you jumped to WCW for a year in 1995.
And that's when I met the illustrious, wonderful David Penzer.
Yes. Was that purely a money decision? Was that a get back at Vince decision? Was that a WCW's hot I want in decision?
That was 100%. I want to continue Jeff Jarrett's career. I knew as well as anybody sort of where the Double J character was at when I left. I knew that, and you got, where you're leaving out a little bit in the history. I know you're not doing it on purpose, but I went back for a little bit, and I knew it was going south. So in October of '96, I knew I was going to have an opportunity. NWO had gone off; it had taken off. I knew that there was a lot of equity still on the Double J character, which was the WWF character. Obviously, Diesel and Razor and the Hulkster and a few others had headed south. So I knew that there was, a real potential there, without question, a real potential there. And so I wanted to take, Jeff Jarrett's my God-given name. I knew I could use that name. Didn't have to, back in those days, and you were around it. It was so odd that, you had, Brutus the Barber and whatever his name was at WCW. But you had different guys that had to jump ship, that some had to completely abandon their characters. Others, Razor Ramon played Scott Hall, but Razor Ramon is and was Scott Hall. So I knew that I had Jeff Jarrett and wanted just to continue my career. That's really the only agenda I had.
Actually, you talk about that and people having to change their names. One of the, as I look back, and I didn't have this written down or anything, but I'm just thinking back. One of the funniest kind of reverse ribs was when Virgil came over and they called him Vincent.
Yep.
Because they had named him Virgil as a rib on Dusty, and then they named him Vincent as a rib on Vince. So his whole career is basically a rib on important people, and I haven't even thought about that. I need to get him on and ask him if he realizes that.
Well, I knew Virgil as Soul Train Jones. He's another guy that came down to Tennessee. He was from the Pittsburgh area. He came down here and had a run. And old Mike Jones, I've always gotten along with him from day one. What a character. And I know we'll get to StarCast in a little while, but have you heard what he's trying to do at StarCast?
No, is he setting up outside or something?
Oh my God, that guy he's something else, man. He is something else. He's contacted the city of Schaumburg or something. It's bizarre, man. I mean, when I heard it, because I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, but me and Conrad and Fight Guys and a couple of production teams were up in Chicago and doing a site survey and walking through some things, and the people at the hotel were politely asking, and I just when I heard what came out of your mouth, I took a couple of steps and walked off, and I'm like, did I hear what I think? Because I know who Mike Jones is. But anyway, food permits, and I mean, the guy is something else.
Hey, we did a Legends of Wrestling show in Citi Field a couple of years ago with Goldberg and a whole bunch of names, and Mike had driven to New York City and asked Brian Knobs, who's in charge, if he could come in. And of course he said, yeah, but you can't sell anything because, once you bought a ticket for a certain, meet and greet, that was, the pictures and all that were included. So of course, Mike Jones sits up in the corner, and next thing you know, he's selling $20 for a picture with the Intercontinental belt. He's selling, 42 different photos of him and DiBiase together with DiBiase already signed, and he ran off the photos of DiBiase's signature so that he could sign them. And we had to go over there and shut him down. And he didn't even leave. He didn't leave easily. He didn't want to go. So he comes and sets up, and good luck getting rid of him at StarCast. But
I mean, I know we're getting off track here. Think about that. He has literally contacted the city of Schaumburg, Illinois, to get a permit. Yeah, a permit. I got to sort of give him props on the one hand, and on the other hand, I'm like, dude, I was speechless when I heard it come out of the hotel executive's mouth. But
yeah, you got to give him a little bit of props, though. Seriously, I mean, hijacking an event at Citi Field is one thing, but permits is a whole nother level. So
it's a completely whole nother level. I mean, ODB food truck up there, and I started joking, and I said, I just wonder if he's going to be doing his his meat sauce. Oh, Dave, let's keep moving.
So you went back to you spent a year as a horseman, and then not a horseman, and then you went back to WWF. I'm not sure if they were WWE at the time.
WWF. I've only worked for the WWF, quote unquote, but no. They did that 2000. Oh gosh, we're going to get slammed for this. 2002-ish, 2003. Yeah.
So you were teaming at one point, and I know you were riding up and down the roads with Owen Hart, who was one of your best friends. And you mentioned on the Fight show that you never processed Owen's death until you were in treatment recently. So I'm wondering how, because man, there's so much to process in this business with I'm still processing the Benoit thing, because I knew him like few people knew him. Grunge did, and Regal, but not, the ones who lived around him knew him a different way. How do you finally come to grips mentally with that tragedy that happened to Owen?
Well, diplomatically, I'll say it's pretty hard to segue from Virgil to this situation. I
didn't expect to get in the Virgil. So I think I get a pass.
Yeah, and I'll if you want to, if people want to know more about this situation, I went into detail. I told my host Kenny McIntosh I had 4 shows over there. We had talked about it a little bit, and he said, "Hey, I kind of don't want to ask you this, and I'm not going to ask you this every night, but I'd like to sort of go into it." On the Fight show, it's recorded. It'll be, and I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm fine. So I went into it pretty detailed. But I'll say this, and because I do want to be a good guest for you, Dave. And so your question is, how do you finally process it? I think is sort of. I don't think that's your question, right, Dave?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I'll be real top line about this. But I hope someone out there is listening that may have trouble sort of processing things, because we all go through death or tragic situations or whatever it may be. And I again, like I said, I went into detail, but when you go from a fun-natured live event on a Saturday to the passing on a Sunday, to work on Monday, Tuesday, wake, funeral, back to work, all in 7 days, and then you sort of move on because life happens and litigation begins, and you have all the you have an entire scenario that continues to build with everything, just you were there, you were in the industry then, just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. I chose to just zip it and went on about and put my nose to the grindstone and went back to work and went back to dealing with life, whether it's family, friends, kids, whatever it may be. I never discussed it, and I will be the first to tell you that's the absolute wrong. So you just referenced Benoit, a completely different set of circumstances, right, but still tragic nonetheless. Lives were lost in a horrible, horrific way. No comparison, no. But lives were lost on both scenarios. But the only way is to talk about it. Talk about somebody that you trust, and it doesn't have to be one person, but continuing discussion. Talk about it. Talk about how it makes you feel, how it doesn't make you feel, why you don't want to talk about it, why you do want to talk about it. But the whole process and the definition in the dictionary process is when you look at Webster's dictionary, it really spells out what one of the definitions of process is, and that is a processing situation. It's analyzing and just walking through the steps, and if you got to go back and live it and react it and think about it, but that is something that I believe is healthy for everybody, is completely process, and if need be, continue to process it. And I think that's the healthy way to do it, as opposed to the other way and not talk about it.
Yeah, and as you said, in the wrestling business, it's really hard because you got to keep going. There's you don't get a month off, to grieve, really. You got to keep going, so it's really hard. But I agree. So a lot's been said, and you've told the story a million times of the quote-unquote holding Vince up at No Mercy. I don't want to go through the whole story again, but I think in a nutshell, you wanted the money that you thought you were owed, that you didn't know that you were gonna get for past shows that you had did, and merchandise and pay-per-view numbers, and you came up with a number, and Vince handed you a check, and you went out and dropped the belt to China. If y'all hadn't agreed, and if he hadn't handed you that check, what was Jeff Jarrett going to do that night?
I mean, and you're probably better off getting the side of the story from JR, because it was a one-on-one conversation I had with him. I made it clear, it was now again, I would have had to been faced with that situation. But I knew that I wasn't under contract, and they didn't have to pay me a penny, not 1 cent contractually, nothing. And they could have just as easily told me to go home. Right. That's why, even though you've heard the podcast, you've heard the stories, you still wanted to use the phrase, hold Vince McMahon up. That still to this day is the most ridiculous phrase that I've ever heard. And you still have not given me the answer. Did I hold him up with a knife, a 45, a shotgun? What was the actual weapon? Because you're already alluding, held up is by force. So what weapon did I actually use to hold him up? Do you know that yet?
Well, I guess if you're going to go with that theory that you held him up, you held him up with his championship belt that he wanted back and he wanted you to drop.
Okay, so I held him up.
That's what I'm asking you. Would you have done that? That's what I'm. That's what I'm asking you. Would you have actually done it, or would you have gone out and dropped the belt? Because if you'd have gone out and dropped the belt anyway and then let it litigate down the road or something like that, then you didn't hold him up at all.
No, I guess I would have had to been faced with that, and for me to give you an answer, that's something that I steer clear of because it's a hypothetical.
But
answer.
I love hypotheticals, Jeff.
Well, that's you can love it all you want. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to engage in it. But I will. Hats off. That's a good question. But I think it's a hypothetical answer because until I was faced with it or they were faced with it, we'll never know.
Okay. So WCW Part 2. Looking back on it.
And again, here it comes. I walk in the door and one face that greets me at every show. Dave, me and you had a lot in common. That second run, I made every show, and you did too.
Yep, we did, and I don't regret it.
Me neither.
You never go on to give somebody else a chance to take your spot, especially when you're the ring announcer. And look, you're Jeff Jarrett, and you have a name and you have a talent that a lot of people can't do. I guess one could say a ring announcer has talent people can't do, but there's a lot of them out there, and it's not nearly as important as the talent in the ring. So I had to stick around, and by sticking around, by ensuring I was sticking around, I just always was there. So if you're never not there, they can't miss you or not miss you. Folks, now that SummerSlam is in the books with All In right around the corner and Hell in a Cell coming up September 16th from San Antonio, Texas, the best way to watch all these shows is through Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats offers great prices for all wrestling events, from WWE pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell to SmackDown and Raw to indie shows like All In. And don't forget the New Japan Ring of Honor sold-out Madison Square Garden Super Show in 2019. For a limited time, Vivid Seats is giving City Ringside listeners 10% off your first order. All you need to do is enter promo code Ringside at checkout. Vivid Seats is an online event ticket marketplace dedicated to providing fans of live entertainment with experiences that last a lifetime, and all Vivid Seats confirmed orders are backed by a 100% guarantee. Go to vividseats.com or download the app like I did. And in addition to professional wrestling tickets, Vivid Seats could help you get to the concert, football game, baseball game, or show of your choice. We all enjoy watching wrestling on TV, of course, but nothing beats being there in person. Take it from me. So go to Vivid Seats, use our exclusive promo code Ringside to receive 10% off your first order. The offer is good through the end of September. First-time customers only. Don't miss out. Go to vividseats.com and be at the matches. Looking back, I know that you're that you were a big Russo and Ferrara guy. I know that you were. I don't want to say I know. I think that you were happy when they were booking WCW, and maybe that's one of the reasons you came in. Looking back, though, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, 1 being drizzling shizits, what would you give? And I like Vince, and I love Ed Ferrara, so I'm not trying to heel on anybody or give anybody a hard time. It is what it is. What would you give their booking of of WCW in the first 6 months before Bischoff came back?
Again, and I'm a little bit surprised because you are in the industry, but you almost sound like we're in kindergarten class. Let's rate this 1 to 10 on a subjective business, Dave. A subjective business.
All right. Do you think they did a good job?
I believe they did as good a job as they possibly could have. Because do you think? Yes, I do. I think they did a good job, as the best they could have. And here's why. Do you think they showed up to work and said, I'm going to really screw this up? I promise you. Hey, Ed, let's write the worst show we possibly could. No, they wrote the best show they possibly thought they could have. Now, was it under the tutelage and under the machine of not only Vince, but the machine that Vince built? No. And I think that they are not the only ones that I found out in 1996 when I went from WWF to WCW, that animal, there is no comparison in the two of a corporate-run organization versus a family-run or not just family-run, a wrestling business run by a wrestling promoter. What a novel concept. But no, Vince and Ed, they worked their butt off, wasn't for lack of effort. Did they make all the right decisions? Absolutely not. But does any creative person make all the right decisions? And I'll say this, maybe the first couple of shows they had free reign. But as a corporate world, when you come in the door and you are having to write the show with an agenda other than let's just write the best show, it's difficult. It is difficult under so many circumstances. And when you don't have 100% backing of like they had with Vince, because, Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara can pitch something, and if Vince likes it, there's no wiggle room. We are doing this. And if talent didn't want to do it, well, then that was between the talent and Vince McMahon, not the talent Vince Russo. So the buck stopped with Vince, and I've said it 1,000 times, and it's nothing new. That that's the difference. Sure. That is the difference. So there are certainly and I think you said the first 6 months, there's some definite markers in the demos and in the quarter hours that they were successful. But I'm sure you can dig up 1,000 reasons why they weren't. But at the end of the day, my hat's off to those guys during the time, because, they and all of us jumped on the Titanic, and I certainly didn't, and I don't think they did, and a bunch of others had no idea at how much disarray the organization was behind the scenes. I don't know. You may have known. It's a good question for me to ask you. But in October of 1999, that company didn't even resemble what it was 2 years later. Yeah, 2 years earlier. 2 years earlier. In September of 97 was my last show there, to October of 99. The two organizations, to me, didn't even resemble each other.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I sort of had the feeling in the back of my mind and the knowledge, but the Mark in me who was living his dream job was hoping that they could get it back on track. But yeah, you could see that it was going the wrong way for sure. So I've had David Arquette on this podcast. I've had Eric Bischoff on this podcast, and I've
sorry for those guys. I can't believe you conned them into it. Go ahead.
So I've argued, because David Arquette really thinks he's the one who killed WCW when they gave him the WCW championship. I've argued.
Does he really?
Oh, he takes it. You'll see him in a couple of weeks at StarCast. I think he's going to be there. You need to talk to him, because he really, he takes it to heart. He thinks that it was his fault. And so I've argued to both David and to Eric on this podcast that I don't think that it was even that bad an idea. It got a ton of publicity. I think you had mentioned it's the first time that only time David Letterman ever mentioned the name Jeff Jarrett on his show. Got a ton of publicity. It was a fluke win over a heel manager. So I'm not saying it was the most brilliant thing to do, and I know it turned a percentage of people off. I don't think it was near as bad as people make it. That's just my opinion. That said, what do you think was a worse move, having Arquette as WCW champion or Vince Russo as WCW champion?
God, you're learning your trade the way you're phrasing your question. What is the worst move? So you're assuming that I think both of them are bad moves.
Okay. How would I rephrase that then?
Exactly, you moron. What are you talking about, Spencer? What is the worst move? Oh, so put words in my mouth.
I'm just assuming that everybody I've talked to says that both of them probably weren't the best moves. So I'm just
don't play the assume game with me, or you'll get dial tone.
Well, then
moron.
I just threw away my question pad. Seriously, I just threw it on the ground.
Okay, well, and I can just tell you that the Arquette shouldn't flatter himself if he thinks that's what if that put WC out of the business. Let's go down the list of stuff that never happened on camera. First class airline tickets that were thrown out the window. That the legendary stories of guys that had first class airfare that never went.
Right.
So I mean, when the money was running out the door, literally wasted. I would put that way above a subjective wrestling storyline that puts a company, and not any one single decision, in my opinion, put WCW out of business. Not even close. It was a collective culture that was created, in my opinion, that the drain started circling, and all of a sudden it got into that, as they call it, a financial death spiral that they never could pull the nose up in it. If they would have created more black ink as opposed to red ink, the business, would not have fundamentally changed in 2001. When they shut the doors, the business drastically changed.
I can't disagree with that. So, what do you think the better move was? Arquette as WCW champion, or Vince Russo as WCW champion?
See, now you're flipping it. Now you're assuming I think both of them are good. Dave, let's take them on an individual basis. The Arquette deal by design, and maybe you can help me out this, because I've talked about it several times, and certainly in the podcast, what would we call the podcast era? I've been asked about it and that kind of stuff on different things. But wasn't it actually Tony Schiavone's idea that got thrown out?
I don't know the answer to that question. We could find out. Everybody can find out at StarCast.
Yeah. But anyway, there you go. StarCast, cheap plug. There you go. But no, I think it was brought up in a production meeting. And I'll say this, not this singular idea, but when you have a subjective wrestling program, but you have a creative meeting, you have a production meeting disguised, and it's in reality a creative meeting, your culture is screwed up. In my opinion, your culture is screwed up. But end result, was it the greatest wrestling move in the world or the greatest storyline? Not at all. But was it the worst? No, but it's subjective. It certainly didn't put them out of business, and it certainly wasn't the absolute worst, because it was a celebrity who won on a fluke. Maybe the exit strategy, the entrance strategy and exit strategy, but, it all made fundamental, I hate to use this word, but wrestling logic, because Ready to Rumble and Arquette and everything that went with it. And yes, he did. It was a publicity stunt.
Sure.
You can go back and debate, should you do a publicity stunt with the world title? That's subjective. That's debatable. But the fact of the matter is this, and I've always said things like this. The fact that me and you are still talking about this almost 20 years later tells me it wasn't the worst idea ever by any stretch of the imagination. Not even remotely close.
You are correct. And I'm not trying to look, Jeff, I'm not trying to bust your balls on this stuff. And I know you're playing a little bit too, but we've known each other a long time, and we've been friends, and we've talked a lot up and down the roads about a lot of some of this stuff. But I know this is the one chance that I'm going to have to sit down at a public forum with Jeff Jarrett, who, like I said, has done so much in this business. And so I'm just going to ask some questions, and I'm not trying to lead you in a certain direction for sure.
You're not? Okay. So anybody out there who listens to this, feel free to chime in at the appropriate time. You're not trying to lead me, but you literally said, out of the two, which is the worst? And then less than 3 minutes later, you said, what was the better decision? If that isn't leading journalism, I don't know what is. But I'm going to go ahead and be exhaustively complete here. That you talked about the Russo thing. Another thing, it was shock value, maybe too much for some people's taste, but big picture thing. Again. Shock value, but then you go back into the culture of, if you get shocked 4 times every Nitro, you're no longer shocked at all. So that's another subjective, big picture decision that was made. Singularly, was it the worst idea? No, and it certainly didn't put them out of business. Collectively, over time, over the months, I think the track record speaks for itself, because as an organization, ratings went down as opposed to up. black ink turned to red ink, and the door was open for McMahon to come in and get it, buy it pennies on a dollar, and that's exactly what happened.
There you go. You're going to love this next question. So in June of 2000, I was working as talent relations, assistant to Terry Taylor in the talent relations department. Terry Taylor came in and instructed me to do what I'm about to tell you I did, which was that on a Thursday, I called Booker T in Houston, Texas, and told him he was winning the WCW World Championship at Bash at the Beach that Sunday, and to bring a nice suit for Monday Nitro. My question to you is, were you aware in advance that that was the plan?
I can assure you that's the first time. You've just made a little history with me. Now I'm going to smack the taste out of your mouth at StarCast for never telling me this. I never knew that. No kidding, Dave. I never knew that side of it. No, I was not told that.
That was always we could rehash that whole thing and nothing's going to get said because the lawsuits have gone by and everybody's probably not allowed to say anything anyway. But that was always the thing in the back of my mind that knowing that little tidbit of information in the back of my mind, always, whatever story you chose to believe, whether it was Vince's, whether it was Hulk's, whether it was Eric's, a combination of all three or none, the fact that I knew that I had called him always didn't make sense to me. So I just thought I'd ask you that question. Let's talk about real quickly the last Nitro. Go ahead.
And real quickly, the fact that you gloss over it, don't you think that is a integral piece of the entire story?
Yeah, I do. So knowing that, so let's explore it then. Knowing what you know now, what I just told you, has it changed your thought process of what you were made to believe went on that night?
It certainly puts a complete. I don't want to be too over dramatic here, but no, it puts a whole nother slice in there. In that the Hogan. It's not really the Hogan. The whole, I'll say, the day of events certainly could have gone a couple of different ways. And I'll soak it in that you were a soldier telling another soldier, and I was a soldier being told another thing. So there was a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and it all came down to creative control, as we all know that. But it's a different little slant on things that I think makes for fun discussion at this stage of the game.
I thought it would. So the last Nitro, everybody remembers Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon took a shot at you with the DONNEE. What was going through your mind? Did you think it was funny? Did you think, holy crap, I really pissed him off? Did you think, were you aware of it?
Yeah, I was aware of it, and that's where another thing that sort of the legend of that continues to grow, and I've had fun with it over the years. But the fact of the matter is, I certainly didn't have a clicker out and count, but I was one of X amount of wrestlers that Vince and maybe that night the only one he singled out. So I knew the business well enough, certainly at that stage of my career, to know that ain't all a bad thing by any stretch, knowing that I was getting paid for another 8 or 9 months. Regardless, he picked a name out of the hat, and he picked mine to emphasize on in a vignette from Cleveland, Ohio. So, no, I never did. I don't even know what the right word, offense or was I shocked? None of that. No, I was inside. I was grinning going, okay, all right, who knows?
Yeah, it had to be definitely interesting going through your mind because you were the only one that he singled out. So, so you start TNA with your dad and Bob Ryder. There's so many rumors gone throughout the years of God. If you had $1,000 for every time that somebody on the internet or social media reported that TNA was shutting down or about to shut down, you'd probably have a nice wad of $1,000 bills in your pocket. So since you were on the inside, was there ever a point up until you left and started Global Force Wrestling that you were actually worried that the thing may actually not go?
Oh, the day we got the call from Hell South, until the day that we were sitting in front of Bob Carter. Those were some very, very trying days, without question, because it was, and I've got the date written down somewhere, but I want to say it was May, April, maybe April of 2002 is when Hell South agreed to come on board and be the finance. So from April till the day I got the call, the company was funded and well funded, very well funded. The line of credit was, Richard and his team were going all in for it. I'll say, you got to know him, but very, very deep pockets.
From Hell South, you're saying?
From Hell South, yes. But when they called and they ran into their trouble and they, got the call that no longer going to be funding, they couldn't fund. It was a Thursday morning call, and we just had a show on a Wednesday night. And from that point till Labor Day weekend, when we closed the deal with Bob Carter, those were some definitely trying times. But when he came on board, it wasn't all easy. But collectively, us as a group, we kept on keeping on, and rowing in the same direction. I remember those days very fondly because we certainly weren't making any money, but man, were we putting out an effort and a product, and we were growing in ways that didn't always appear on camera or publicly. But we knew that the seeds were being planted, and we were plowing the field, and we were moving the ball down the field. Did we have a roadmap exactly where we were going? No, but we knew we were making growth. I mean, we had our first international deal early in our organization's history. So there were little spots of growth all along the way. Was it all rosy? No, but it was certainly headed in that direction.
So I was, as you know, and as most people know, if you listen to this podcast, I was a tour manager for Roddy Piper back in 2002, and tour bus went all over the country. We were actually based, as you know, in Nashville at the beginning and the end, because we were using Billy Ray Cyrus's tour bus. So that's why we were based there. And I reached out to you sort of through Roddy because I knew you, and it ended up with a famous segment of Roddy walking into the building in Nashville and cutting a promo on Russo. At the end of the promo, the Harris brothers came in. Russo came in, and the Harris brothers came in. Roddy left, and Roddy always – I don't want to say always because I don't want to put words in his mouth. God bless him. Rest in peace. He at that point, he thought he was double-crossed. What was the real story of how that went down?
They went and don't hold me to exact and I'm glad that, at Global Force, me and Roddy, his movie was coming out. We were promoting it, and, we aired the video to the arena after his passing. But we got a chance to catch up on all that. But if I remember correctly, Vince went to the ring on his own, and Ron and Don went with him. I'll call it as his backup, but I know Ronnie and Donnie well enough to know that they came for peacemaking at the end of the day.
So you didn't know that those guys were going out?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, good. I'm glad we settled that. Is it true? Because out of all these things that we're talking about, as crazy as they are, Arquette and Russo winning the belt and lip syncing and Milli Vanilli. Is it true that the reason why you and Toby Keith didn't buy TNA was because the final demand was that Dixie stay as a president as a character as president of TNA?
That is not true.
That is not true.
Not true.
Thank God that's not true.
Re-ask that question because I won't. Again, this is almost like the holding up story. That I want you to ask that question again and listen to yourself asking it.
Oh no, it's absolutely ridiculous. But look, this is professional wrestling. Strange things happen in this crazy business, and you know how egos are. It's not with that. It sounded crazy, but it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that was the holdup.
So what is the question asked?
The question was, if the ultimate reason that you and Toby Keith did not buy TNA was because Bob Carter demanded that Dixie Carter, his daughter, stay on as a character as president of TNA Wrestling, just as a character on television.
God, you got to love this business. No, I'm giving you the same answer. I just wanted you to ask that. Maybe that was just for my entertainment purposes or others' entertainment, but just how ludicrous and no, that's not the reason.
I just gained a lot more respect for Dixie Carter, by the way. By you telling me that's not you. So, care to tell people, because everybody thinks that's, everybody in kayfabe world thinks that's the reason. Care to tell people why it really never happened?
No, I got some
my producer just took a flare dive head first.
Yeah, I got respect for several people involved, and won't do any good to talk about those events. I certainly, it wasn't meant to be. That's very obvious and very apparent. But man, the what ifs, it could have been a really fun ride, because when you look at the history of Toby and his career and how successful he's been and still continues to this day, super, super successful. He's a great singer-songwriter, a great performer, but I think at the very top of his list is an incredibly smart, visionary entertainment person. And I really, I can't say enough good things about him personally, but obviously professionally, it would have been a very, very interesting ride.
And you've told me that for years about Toby, because me and my wife are big Toby Keith fans of his music. What is the? Could you tell us what the biggest what if you would have been able to make the sale happen? What would have been? Could you give us a little hint of what you would have done, you and Toby, with the company?
No, because contrary to your belief, my career's not over. I'll leave those trade secrets in the back of my head and Toby's head. But I can assure you they could still be relevant to this day. And I know that you just got to no need for me to spill it all on these airwaves. But no, you just sort of look at, and again, Toby's a guy that, he's been not just selling records and downloads and everything else. He's been on top for a long time and continues to have an incredibly successful career. And, we're 25 years, and that doesn't really happen to very few guys in his line of work. And he's still at the very tip top. So when I say visionary, I mean that probably much more than words can say. So I'll just say I'll leave the what ifs, and God willing, they may become a reality one day.
I'd love to see that happen. So I'm going to wind this down. I thank you for your time. I have a few more questions. I know you'll answer this question. I know that you have an agreement, or I believe you have an agreement with Fight TV to produce content. I know we're going to talk about Starcade in a minute. I know Starcast. My bad. Are you at liberty to say any of the other content that you're maybe thinking of creating or having the plans?
No, that's on a rollout basis. We've got some really cool stuff coming up October, November, December. We've got an event we're already talking about in first quarter of 2019. As a matter of fact, two events. One just came up right on the tail end of my UK career, my UK deal tour. So we've got some really cool.
And they are?
I can't, dude. Do you think I'm going to have breaking news on Dave Pencer's Swerve podcast? So let me ask you, Jeff.
Sitting Swerve.
Out of the two, what were the two worst ideas? And tell me why they were WCW ideas. You talk about, you're too much, dude. You are too much.
Hey, I know that you're the AAA Mega Champion. Any chance of working with AAA and Fight TV as a team?
Well, I'll respectfully say they are contractually at this time. Their major events and their tentpole events, they've got to deal with Twitch. So certainly, I'd love to work with them, but they are contractually bound to Twitch. Who's to say that we can't something else come on up down the line? We're working on a lot of great things, but I've got a ton of respect for that organization, Dorian and his family, and over the years, obviously, I go way back to those guys. Been working with them since the early days of TNA. So a lot of success with those guys, and looking forward to more success in the years to come.
Yeah, I was just down in Tijuana and a couple of weeks ago, and Conan invited me to a AAA show, and they're on fire, man. I know you know because you're the champion, but they're on fire. The only thing that was a little unnerving was does Laparca talk to you? Does Adolfo does he say hi and talk to you? Because I got big league. I got big league by Laparca.
He doesn't like you. Let's just get that on the line.
Obviously, I don't know what I ever did to him, but yeah, he big leagued me. It was like, hey, how you doing? And he basically looked at me up and down and kept talking. And I said, you remember me, who I am? Don't ring announcer for W. He's like, yeah. He blew my ass off, man.
No. And what a career that guy's had, man. I got a lot of respect for his ability, man. His staying power, his drawing power. Oh, unbelievable. And I'll echo your sentiments. It at this stage of my career, Dave, you know me a long time, but for me to be the mega campeon of that organization, the number 2 wrestling organization in the world. I mean, they're enormous. All through South America, their own network down there and streaming services, and then the different countries. They're breaking into Colombia and Chile and other countries down there. They got it going on big time.
And he is over like $1 million. I'll give him his credit. He's in the main event. He's the last one out. And, huge. The place went absolutely nuts for him, which pissed me off even. No, I'm kidding. So let's talk about StarCast. I think when I heard about what Conrad was doing with StarCast on the All-In weekend, I said to myself, man, I wish I thought of that. And then I heard what you and Fight were doing, broadcasting all those panels and all that. And I was like, darn, that's one I really wish I thought of. Not that I have the means to do it, but great idea, because there's so many people who want to hear the Death of WCW panel or the Andy Kaufman panel and can't make it, because not only because the thing's sold out, but because they just can't make it for whatever reason. So talk a little bit about that. I know that there's a contest going on. I don't know if you want to promote it. I have it pulled up here, and it's like a $10,000 value, I think.
It's unbelievable. And you got to give all the credit to Conrad and his team. And I'm, the deal, and me and Fight go back to Wrestle Kingdom 9. I've had a working relationship. They used to be called Flips Media. The parent company's still called Flips.
Yeah. We were going to do something with them, not to bring up bad memories.
Yeah, but they Mike Weber was consulting for Global Force, and that's how he was introduced to the organization. And then, last year we had arm's length discussions, and I've always, first and foremost, as you are well aware, I'm not a tech guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I am in tune enough to know when I see good technology. And the Fight technology, flip it up on the big screen, transactional pay-per-view, it's encrypted, you can't steal the signal. It's very clear, no buffering. It's just great. And when the opportunity presented itself early this year, they approached me and said, "Hey, we're boxing, wrestling, and MMA. We sort of want to bring you on as the wrestling guy to help market and bring projects and maybe basically sort of get things headed in a streamline." And so our goal is to bring really, really. We just want to bring the very best wrestling content that we possibly can. I never really dreamed in January that I'd be bringing for the first major event that Global Force and Fight sort of bring to market would be a podcast convention. We've got wrestling shows that are going to be coming up fourth quarter of this year, but as things roll along and Conrad and his team, and they got it on sale, and just how red hot things are. But just then, and I'll just say from a, great WrestleMania cards or Halloween Havoc or whatever it is, you look at, okay, what's the main event? What's the semi-main event? But when you look at StarCast over the 4 days and you see empty arena panel, you see death of WCW, you see, just the roast of Bruce Pritchard and X-Pac, 360. You just look at all the content that's on there and the fan base that we're talking 5 decades of talent. I mean, Kevin Sullivan as well as I do, but Kevin goes back to the 70s, and you got Hall and Nash and Conan and I could go on and on and on and on and on. Eric and Tony and Bruce. I mean, just I could literally talk about this forever. When I looked at it, and me and Fight, and I presented to them, and then we approached Conrad, and as it all sort of fell in place, I'm like, this is really, it's hard to do at first, like I do. It's really hard to do something for the very first time.
Right.
And wrapped around the all-in pay-per-view, hats off to that entire situation. But it's really Labor Day weekend in Chicago. The wrestling world, all eyes will be on Chicago that weekend. And I'm super excited that we're bringing it to market and fans can purchase this, and you don't have to watch it if you've got something planned on Labor Day weekend. You can watch it the following week. You buy it. You have it for a lifetime. You can look at it and start and stop and pause and watch one show at a time and all that. Just the technology, like a Netflix, it's there for life, and all the content. It's really it's really a unique event, and the value of it, as all of us collectively, we're trying to figure out how to price it, and it's a steal. I know that it's, when you, on one hand you say, oh gosh, it's, $99, but over 4 days and 40 hours, and you started doing the math and how all of it's going to work, and it is a business, so you have to figure out how things are going to work out. It's incredible. It is, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I'm going to be honest with you. If I wasn't a part of it, if I wasn't going to be there, I'd buy the thing. I wouldn't watch it that weekend, but I'd watch it over the course of the next couple of weeks, sure.
I guarantee you, and Karen is, and my kids too, but, we got Netflix like everybody, we got streaming services, and they'll go through One Tree Hill or Gossip Girl or whatever their show is, House of Cards or whatever, they'll watch the series, and, that's what they watch. I mean, for someone like me and you, Dave, and we were both wrestling fans before we got in the business, this is like, okay, this is my content. This is what I'm going to watch for the next month. Or who knows, if I've got a free night, I may binge watch 5 of them. But it's certainly my go-to programming that I'm going to watch over the next X amount of weeks, because every show on there, when I look at it, I mean, Robbie E. wide-ended. That's the last thing that we're producing on that Sunday. That's going to be compelling when I hear things that he has lined up there, and the things we're kicking it off with, and then the 4-star summit or 5-star summit with Meltzer and Keller and Alvarez and Bruce Mitchell, all the stuff that they have. That's going to be compelling to sell. I mean, I literally could go on and on and on, and because all of us that are in this business, we've lived it for many, many years. The 90s and the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars and then just everything, and the TNA panel. And I've got some pretty good things lined up. And Dave, you're going to be on the hot seat that day as well. So we're going to find out, how did it really feel when Kurt Angle puts you in the eye? Don't answer. Save that for StarCast.
Oh, we're going to keep teasing that? And we tease that every time you're on this podcast. So now you got to buy StarCast to hear. Okay. Hey, after StarCast, will you then come on like in 3 months and we could finally tell the story and give my listeners a payoff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. We can keep. So, is it true that Don West, if you say yes to this, I'm gonna be very happy. Is it true that he's doing a promo to promote this Ultimate StarCast experience?
Well, first off, the Ultimate StarCast experience, I didn't go back to that. When Conrad and his group, and there's a bunch of us that are working on all this, when I really looked at the value of what this dude is presenting, I went, how in the heck? And he's like this and anything. 2 people are going to be flown, and you realize this. Here's what's crazy.
He keeps announcing stuff. It's sold out. He just announced yesterday he could call a match, a New Japan match with
Yes.
I could see his Kevin Kelly.
Well, here's the deal.
It's just incredible.
Now here, the shows, there's a ballroom and a pavilion. The shows are sold out, but all I'll call them the add-ons, like you said, call a match. There's some meet and greets. There's certain things, there's some things to the general public. Those aren't sold out to my knowledge, but there are some. But they're that's what I'm saying is you're adding that, because here's the deal: more people are wanting to come in. Every hotel room at the Schaumburg Hyatt is sold out to outside of, I think it's 10 to 12, 20 rooms to an airline that they contractually can't move. But every room in that hotel is sold out for the StarCast event. And people are wanting to get in, and the surrounding areas, I'm telling you, it's like nothing. And I've been in this business a long time, but that giveaway that they're giving two people, you realize two people from Tasmania could win this contest, because it's a worldwide contest. And Conrad, these guys, I said, dude, that could be a $10,000 a plane ticket. He said, well, that's what we signed up for. So two people are going to get flown in, and they get first-class treatment of everything available for the entire weekend. I think that's pretty cool. So yes, it's the ultimate StarCast. Have they put a value on it? Where did you get 10,000?
I just guessed it, but I mean, you got 3 nights stay in not only a hotel room, but a suite.
A suite.
Yeah, so that's where I'll be hanging out, because I don't have a suite for sure. 2 front row ringside tickets to All In, 2 tickets to every meet and greet, 2 tickets for an eat and greet every day. We had Conrad on and talked about how that was a unique situation where you and 11 other people could eat with you, Jeff, or with other wrestling superstars. 2 platinum bracelets to StarCast, 2 VIP after party tickets, and if that wasn't enough, a StarCast merch prize package. And knowing Conrad like I do, knowing you like I do, I'm sure that you guys will take care of them and make these 2 winners feel like I was going to say win the lottery. It sort of is the wrestling lottery.
It is. It's definitely the StarCast lottery. But yeah, we're going to roll out the red carpet for them, and we're excited. Fight's super excited. Global Force, StarCast, just everybody's excited about the giveaway. And Conrad, again, give him all the credit. But your question was the Don West video.
Yes.
So Don has agreed to be a part of the panel, and we've got some cool things coming up. He's going to be there and all that, but we're trying to twist his arm. He says he's going to do one, but you got to remember, Don has a full-time, and it's not just a day job. He owns the airways out in Washington State, his sports talk show, 4 hours every day, Monday through Friday. It's the number one thing. He crushes everything in the market, his show, and he runs it all, you name it, the advertising, the personal appearances, the calling. I mean, that's him. Don operates in his world.
Right.
So to get him to do a video, he says he's going to. I'll believe it when it's in my inbox. But I know if he does this, it's going to be entertaining, to say the least.
I put this on Twitter, but if that really comes to pass, I am going to sit down with a vodka and diet Sprite in my hand, and I'm going to enjoy every moment of that, because Don's one of my favorite people. And, it's funny because you know how me and Don and Mike used to sit around the boardroom in Universal, kind of shooting the shit with different guys when we were at TNA, between like the
matter of fact, I worked and y'all sat around and talked, but go ahead.
Yeah, you did. And we did. And I still tell people that's probably the funnest time I ever had in the business, because there was no pressure on me. I just came in, ring announced, got to hang around with funny people and tell stories and shoot the shit with Cornette and Kevin Nash and different people, and me and Don and Mike. I was like the junior member. So, but I used to tell Don, because people used to tell Arn Anderson stories. I used to tell Don, if you could only meet and we could have like a conversation with Arn Anderson, because you know how funny Arn is. I'm like, oh yeah. So, and it used to be like my dream scenario. And then I see Arn Anderson's going to be at StarCast, and I see Don West is going to be at StarCast. So my goal at StarCast is to get these two, and maybe we could do it on your panel, you never know, is to get these guys in a conversation, because I think it would be hilarious.
It would be, I got to see Arn over WrestleMania weekend, and that was the first time I'd seen Arn in a while. And it's like, it's like we hadn't. It's like we had never not seen each other. We picked right up where we left off. I love Arn, and I think we're saying the same thing. Don West is a fantastic storyteller, and Arn Anderson is a fantastic storyteller.
Absolutely. So that's my goal. So we'll see. I'll have to report back. Final question, and you've been very generous with your time. How does it make you feel? And I think I know the answer to your question, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it. When you see guys like Bobby Roode, when you see one of the main event matches for the world title at SummerSlam, AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe, a match that you had headlined pay-per-views and television with, how does that make you feel?
It's funny you say that. ESPN just called me 2 days ago. And I think the article comes out Friday, but the 2 days before SummerSlam. And asked me sort of specifically that question. And then they ask again, and then they ask it a third different way. But they were trying to really, as we say, get a little meat on the bone. But, when I sit there and see it, I cannot be any more happy for those guys.
Sure.
Because, over the last, I'll say 36 months or so, oh my gosh, TNA made this guy, TNA made that guy. In reality, and we both know this, the AJ Styles, Eric Young, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, those guys made TNA.
Yes,
and I'll say from 2002 to 2009, those 7 years and the building blocks, off screen or behind the camera, they're the most rewarding 7 years of my career. And as it stands today, but I'm not done yet. But I couldn't be happier to see AJ and Joe in the slot they are this Sunday for a lot of reasons. I mean, when I say that personally, I know their families, I know their wives, I know their kids. I knew both of them, before they had kids.
Right.
And now here they are, family man, providing for their families. It's very gratifying to see that. It's very gratifying to see two guys that Joe came in and had that massive undefeated streak, and AJ. A lot of people second guess, personally me, Jeff. Why are you going with this guy and staying with this guy? Just all those things, and now here they are, and they get to step on that stage. Man, I'm really, really happy for them because there's no one that can look them in the eye and say they didn't work for it. Nothing was handed for them. Nothing was easy. They've earned everything they've got, and they're sort of reaping the benefits. They're bearing fruit of all the seeds they sowed many years ago. And I told this story the other day to the ESPN guy. The night AJ Styles walked out in Orlando, Florida, at the Royal Rumble, and the whole arena was chanting his name, and he came off. I grant all due respect to New Japan. He came off a phenomenal run, or a great run with New Japan. But that audience, for the most part, they knew AJ from TNA. There's no doubt in my mind. So AJ's body of work in TNA was noticed. And the WWE universe, as they call it, they noticed. And
Sure.
when he arrived and had that electric pop and hasn't looked back, I know I felt good for AJ, because AJ, he didn't leave TNA on the best of circumstances, and I did everything I could to make it the best scenario for him. And I'm super excited for him. He is right where he is supposed to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, and all the guys have, but especially AJ has earned everything that is all the success that's become him. I know that you remember I was with the XWF that never got off the ground. It was around the same time you guys were thinking about starting something, and we had AJ featured as well. And so I'm not taking any credit for it. You gave him the opportunity, but I think we all agree he's an extremely talented wrestler, as is Joe and Bobby Roode and all those guys. Hey, I wasn't going to ask you this question, but it just popped in my mind. So one last question. Taking away nothing from any of your segments, could you think of a more entertaining segment in the history of TNA than Jay Lethal and Ric Flair? I still watch that at least once a month, like at about 1 a.m.
And Jay has been a rock star for Ring of Honor, but from the day I met Jay, his and I'll just the best way to explain it is not only his charisma, but his sports entertainment ability to entertain is magic, and that's what that was. That was sports entertainment. And I know that it's a different era and a different presentation. But Jay really has a gift. Very entertaining. And yes, I'll say that ranked right up there. It has to rank right up there. I'm not sure it's the top one. I would, but it's certainly up there. There's no question.
All right, Jeff. Hey, you've been great with your time, and I know that you're an extremely busy person. And so happy to see. I was really happy to see you go in the WWE Hall of Fame. You came on and we talked about that a little bit, and I appreciate your time to do a longer interview, and looking forward to seeing you at StarCast. So if you haven't already, go to StarCast.com. It's right on the front page, this Ultimate StarCast Experience, and somebody's going to win it. So, if somebody says, hey, yeah, I'm not going to win that, somebody's going to win it. So it could be you. And if it is, then I'll be hanging out in your hotel suite about 1 a.m. most nights. So just letting you know. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, very much. And I appreciate you coming on and talking about your career and what you've done. And what you're going to continue to do in professional wrestling.
I was about to circle back to the beginning. Even though you took the jab at the beginning, I rolled with the punches and didn't get swerved too much by your leading down the road of bad journalism, but that's okay. That's Penzer for you. No, Dave.
Yeah,
I'll get to
if you had $100 bill for every time David Penzer said something stupid the time you've known him, you probably have more money than if you had $10,000 for every time TNA was going to go out of business. So,
there you go, Dave. Great to hear your voice, man. I'll see you at StarCast. Looking forward to it.
I want to once again thank Jeff Jarrett for his time, and always great talking to him. And it's not going to be a conversation with David Penzer and Jeff Jarrett without him busting my balls. So I knew that was coming, and just like with Stevie Ray and some of the other guys that we have that relationship with, I knew it was going to be that way. But I thought we got into a lot of interesting things. Amazed to hear that he never knew that about my Booker T conversation. I'm amazed actually that never came up in our conversations. I'm sure I'll hear a mouthful about that next time I see him. But interesting that he wasn't aware of that. I was not expecting that to be the answer to the question. And so happy to hear that the reason why Toby and Jeff didn't buy TNA is because they insisted on Dixie being a character on television. I like Dixie, and she always did right by me, but there's always a little asterisk by her name and what I thought about her when I thought that was the truth. So glad to hear that is just a rumor. It's funny how rumors take a life of their own, and I think Jeff's had a lot of those in his career. So that's why we wanted to get him on. And listen, hey, hit us up on social media. If you don't follow me on Twitter, at David Penzer, it's at Penzer Ringside. I'd love to talk to you about anything and everything professional wrestling. And next week, we are scheduled to have Johnny Fairplay talk about an interesting life and career. Johnny Fairplay. So talk a lot of wrestling, little Survivor, and what he's up to these days. So we might have a special guest joining us as well later in that event. I have not confirmed that as of yet. And then the week after that is one that you're really going to want to mark down. Sometimes the most amazing interviews are some of the guys that you don't expect them from. Not that I didn't expect an amazing interview, but really had a great interview that we taped ahead of time with Jim Mitchell, James Vandenberg from WCW, Father Jim Mitchell in TNA. And fascinating interview about his life and career and a lot of great stories. So be sure to mark that down as well. And that will be Labor Day weekend, that Monday of Labor Day. I will be, of course, at StarCast, and so we pre-taped that interview, but I'm really looking forward to having you guys listen to it. So that's the next couple of weeks, the City of Ringside. If you enjoy what you're listening to, please tell your friends and neighbors and shout it out, and tell people to subscribe if you listen on a platform where you can leave a review. be sure to do that as well so we know how we are doing. Once again, thanks to Jeff Jarrett. Looking forward to speaking to Johnny Fairplay. Until next week, my name is David Penzer, still sitting ringside. Take care.
Follow David Penzer on Twitter @David Penzer. Also, make sure to follow the show on Twitter @Penzer Ringside. You've been sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.